STEM fans, are you ready? Let's hear it for the world-class NASA STEM Stars team. From NASA centers across the country, we present Dana Hutcherson.
Yay! Welcome STEM fans to the 75th episode of NASA STEM Stars. I'm Jen Hudgens, your host for today, and I'm coming to you from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in sunny Florida. Our guest today is our very own Dana Hutcherson, the Deputy Program Manager for the Commercial Crew Program. Help me in welcoming Dana to the show. So Dana, how does it feel to be a NASA STEM Star?
This is pretty exciting. Actually, this is probably my most favorite part of the job is to be able to talk about my career and the things that I've done.
So have you always known that you wanted to work at NASA?
Actually, probably not always, but, I grew up in Georgia. My mother was a teacher. My father worked for the power company, and my brother was actually probably the space geek of the family. And so when I was younger, I used to follow him around, whether he would do a lot of model rocketry, and I would have to go and chase his rockets when he would launch them. So that was kind of my job as a kid. But I've had a lot of influences through my life with teachers, my brother, my parents, and but it wasn't probably until I got towards the end of college that I realized that this is where I want to have my career.
So what kind of clubs or things were you involved in to help you learn more about rocketry and space science and those types of things?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I was always really good in math and science, and I tutored kids as well, but also, I just had really awesome teachers, and one particular one encouraged me to be a part of the aerospace club, which is like the science and rocket club of the high school. And so I think we have a picture of it here where we actually were out doing bottle rockets, and this made the newspaper at the time. So, this was like one of my first indications of, hey, this is kind of cool to actually get to do launch the model rockets, and maybe I could do this as a business or as a career. So this is probably one of the first times that I actually got to launch the rockets myself rather than chase them down from my brother when I was younger. So I was really excited to have a different part in that process. But I was so fortunate that I had a lot of really awesome teachers throughout my high school, middle school, high school, and encouraging me to step up and to explore some different options. So that's.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned I was going to say I'm glad you mentioned the influence teachers had over your lives, because we here at STEM Stars have a special heart for all of our teacher audiences. We've got a new project that just launched with NASA called Sparks, and a lot of those educators are actually watching today for the first time. So just a huge shout out to those teachers as well. So Dana, can you tell the audience what you started your degree in? Where did you go to school? You said you grew up in Georgia. So can you talk a little bit about your education background so students have an idea of if they want to be you someday? How do they start down that path?
Yeah, this is a good story, actually. So like I mentioned before, I was always interested in science and math and really good at it. I probably wasn't the top of my class in the English and literature portions of school, but it wasn't until towards the end of my high school career that I was asked by one of my teachers to do like a career study. So I had some interest at the time. I was always interested in athletics and some of that. So I was also in band. I played the trumpet as well. So there were some different things that I always thought, hey, maybe I should go and look into some career fields. So one of my, I should also mention, my mom was a teacher too, and she would always thought that I might be some sort of a teacher or a leader one day as well. So this teacher actually asked us to go and do an assignment where we went out to different professionals in the careers that we were interested in, and you were to interview them to kind of see what a day in the life of their career was. And I was able to go and I talked to a musician to understand kind of how that profession looked. As well, I went and talked to a teacher, not my mom, but I talked to another teacher and interviewed them, and kind of understood how that career was. But then I also interviewed a female engineer, and she was actually part of the power company where my dad worked. But I just really do remember that conversation and how she talked about interest in in problem solving, and trying to fix things, trying to make things better, and that just really resonated with me. So I decided at that point that I really wanted to go into and look into engineering, into that field. As a kid, I was growing up, I was always asking questions on why, how does this work? I wanted to fix problems. I wanted to not only just build things, I was build things in the garage with my dad, or tear them up as well, and understand how they worked. But I always wanted to try to fix problems and make things better, make life better, make the world better. And so I think that that's what led me to going into engineering. So I applied to a couple of different schools, but I ended up at the Georgia Institute of Technology, which is in Atlanta. So that was pretty convenient growing up in Georgia, and just right around the corner, being able to go to school. So I went there in at Georgia Tech, studying mechanical engineering, and spent about 5 years there. A little longer than normal, but I will say that I did a couple of years of what they call co-op, which is where you get to work at in a career field as an engineer for part of the time, and then you come back and go to school as well. So I kind of alternated between school and working, which was a really awesome way to, try to get that early influence into how is this really going to look when I grow up. Now, it was still at that time, it wasn't in the rocket business at all yet. That was still not on the horizon, but I really loved engineering. And I should also say too, I graduated at Georgia Tech with a bachelor's of science in mechanical engineering. I probably wasn't the best in my class, but I pushed through it, and I worked really hard, and I really wanted to learn and to study. And I also had a lot of other interests while I was in college too. I tried to make sure that I broke it up and not always studying. So I was a part of the what they call the crew team. I did rowing in college, and so that was a lot of fun times to be able to engage with the community, with teams, and go and travel, and still keep healthy as well when I was in college. So that was a lot of fun. I also was learned some leadership techniques there as well. I was a president of the rowing club at the time, and so it was a way to kind of lead some peers as well while I was in college. So I think that's really how my career, or how I got to to being an engineer.
So with all of your hard work and dedication that you have now at NASA, are you still rowing with a crew around the river here in the Indian River Lagoon, or do you have other hobbies that you like to do in your leisure time?
Yeah, I wish I had kept it up, but I did not. I do have a kayak, and we continue to do that. So I do still enjoy being on the water. I think it's super peaceful for me. We have a boat. It actually looks like a tiki boat. It's kind of a goofy boat, but we like to kind of tool around in the canals, and so I do love being out on the water. But not haven't been a part of a rowing team since college. But it was just a fun way for me to get that early insight into team building, leadership activities. So I think it was definitely something that I really needed in college too, not just the studying. So I've kind of transitioned some of my hobbies, as now I do enjoy making cakes and baking and cooking. And those are, that's a lot of it's kind of my outlet, my creative outlet. So yeah, I've made all kinds of different cakes. I do it for special occasions, not as a business, just for fun, for friends and family. So I've made a couple of different cakes. And one really cool experience, and I'm kind of jumping ahead, but to my career working out at NASA was that I was able to tour around Buddy from Cake Boss, and I was actually on one of the episodes of Cake Boss and we were able to talk and share stories about cakes and some of our love of making cakes and baking. So you never know when some of your interests may collide with some of your with your career too. So it's a really cool opportunity.
I think that's awesome. And I bet that cake was delicious. Did you get a good old piece of that?
I did. It was very tasty. And he had the shuttle rocket like launching, had fire coming out of the engine. So it was really cool. Good experience. And we shared stories on how was he making it, how was he building it. So it was, pretty interesting.
I think it's about time we have Buddy back for commercial crew. I think that would be a good
I
invitation.
agree. I think that would be pretty cool. We can do round two, and I'll take him around at Kennedy Space Center.
Well, since we don't have any questions yet from students that come in, I think now is a perfect time for us to go ahead and try out one of our new segments for the show. It's called Lightning Round. And this is a part of the episode where I give you some rapid fire questions and you just give me a one-word answer. And we actually have a leaderboard with some of our other subject matter experts that have been featured on the show. So you can see that Doug Hoffman from JPL actually answered 10 questions. So he's at the top of the leaderboard. So that is our goal for today. So if you're ready, we'll go ahead and get started with lightning rounds.
All right, let me get ready. Okay, here we go. We're ready.
Time for NASA STEM Stars Lightning Round.
All right, so we've got 30 seconds to get at least 10 questions or more down. So we've got 30 seconds on the clock. And if you're ready, we'll go ahead and get started. Are you ready, Dana?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right, here we go. Shopping, online or in person?
Online.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Fiction or nonfiction?
Nonfiction.
Food truck or restaurant?
Restaurant.
City or country?
Country.
Multiple choice or essay?
Multiple choice.
Passenger or driver?
Passenger.
Pen or pencil? Which do you say, pen or pencil?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last one, but pencil.
Pencil. All right. So you got 8 questions, it's pretty respectable. You did a good job. I gave you a lot of good thinking questions there you had to think about, but your country response was, I think, correct. I think country is way better than city on that one.
Oh yeah. After living in Atlanta for a little while, yeah, I appreciate not living in a city.
Well, I appreciate you playing along with us today, Dana. So let's go ahead and transition back into like what you're doing currently. How long have you been working at the Kennedy Space Center, and what were your roles? What careers have you had during your time here at KSC?
So I've been working at Kennedy Space Center for about 21 years now. I came out of college. I interviewed for several companies, and I interviewed for this company called United Space Alliance. And it was one way that I could get into the space business. And so I interviewed with this company. I will say I didn't get a call back immediately, but I persevered and I called them back and said, hey, I'm really interested in working in the space business. Let me give me an opportunity, give me a chance. And I was able to get a job with United Space Alliance. So I worked on the space shuttle for a number of years, for about 11 years. Started off working the tiles on the space shuttle. So that's all of the stuff that you see on the outside, the black little tile looking things, the white blankets, everything on the outside of the vehicle. I just thought this was one of the greatest jobs right out of college. It was super awesome. I was able to wear jeans every day and come to work in boots and jeans, and this was, great for me. It was a great opportunity. But also, I just enjoyed every day walking out underneath the orbiter, the space shuttle, and being able to just experience what this is like and dream about living in space or what this is like for the astronauts as well. So it's just a really awesome opportunity for me to start out and right out of college. And then about 6 years into that career, I moved over to NASA, and I was able to work on Endeavour. And so this picture here shows you me sitting in the cockpit of Endeavour, and I was actually what they call the flow director for Endeavour. And I was overseeing all the operations, the maintenance, and everything that happened on the space shuttle, getting it ready from landing to launch. So it was a lot of work, big teams of engineers and planners and schedulers, and just a wide variety of people that I was able to lead. And we had a mission to get ready for. And it was a lot of work, just preparing that vehicle, since it was a reusable vehicle. It was something that once it flew, it landed, and we were able to refurbish it, maintenance it, and get it back ready for launch. So that was my early career up until about 2011.
So you mentioned that you were the flow director for Endeavour. So just for the students and for awareness for the folks that are watching out there, how many orbiters were at Kennedy at the time that you were with Endeavour? And did each of the orbiters have their own flow director?
Yeah, that's a great question. At that time, we were down to three orbiters. We were down to Atlantis, Endeavour, and Discovery. So we lost Columbia in my earlier part of the career, but we had three different orbiters or space shuttles, and we each had a flow director, so someone that managed all the work on each of those vehicles. And it was pretty interesting towards the end, around the 2011 timeframe. All three of the flow directors were female, were women engineers. So it was a pretty cool time in history where, it was, you don't really see that very often, as having a lot of the leadership being women.
And I'm sure you got to meet a lot of astronauts along the way too, the crews that were on Endeavour. I think there was a picture that we had. And also, I think there was an orbiter nose to nose with another that you just shared with us as well. I
Yeah.
love that picture. So girl power all the way. I love it.
Exactly. It was that was Angie Brewer. She was another flow director, and it's kind of fun. We ended up had a photo op towards the end of our the shuttle career, and we were able to get a lot of the employees out there to take photos. And so, of course, the two battling flow directors had to go nose to nose as well.
I love it. So you said up until 2011. So what did you transition to after Endeavour flew out to California? What did you do after that?
So, I knew I needed to look for something different to do, obviously, with the space shuttle retiring. And since we didn't have that capability to be able to take our astronauts back up to the International Space Station, there was a brand new program that was being started, and it's called the Commercial Crew Program. So, right as soon as Endeavour landed, I pretty much jumped over and started into the Commercial Crew Program. So this is where I've been ever since. So 10 years or so I've been working in Commercial Crew Program. Pretty awesome to be able to see this program from the inception all the way to where we are today and what we're doing today. And I can talk a little bit about the program if you want, or and what we do.
We have a video that we can show the students and the teachers that are out there watching, and then maybe you can embellish some things after the video. It's just about 2 minutes, and then we'll get back to you with some questions from students that are coming in.
Okay.
NASA's Commercial Crew Program is ready for launch. Did you know the last time we launched astronauts from America was in 2011?
NASA is working with companies Boeing and SpaceX to take astronauts to the International Space Station from America once again. Let's look at how this will happen.
Look at the spacecraft on top of the rocket. This is where humans will be sitting. The astronauts will be buckled into a spacecraft, stacked on top of the rocket as it is launched into space. The rocket holds all of the fuel needed to get to space.
It takes a lot of energy to lift the rocket off the ground, with gravity constantly pulling it down, which is why most of the rocket is filled with fuel. During the rocket's climb to space, it will increase in speed, which means its energy will also increase. Once the rocket has made it past Earth's atmosphere, the engine will finally cut off. The rocket and the spacecraft will separate, and the astronauts will make their way toward the station, where they will be working on science experiments and engineering projects.
What do you think will happen when the spacecraft travels back to Earth?
Boeing has made the Starliner CST-100 to keep astronauts safe as they travel to and from the station. It's designed to touch down safely on land in the western United States. Starliner has parachutes it will use as it prepares for landing, but will also have large airbags expanding under the spacecraft to cushion the landing for the astronauts before stopping completely.
SpaceX's Crew Dragon was also created to send astronauts to and from the space station. As the spacecraft comes back to Earth, the outside will experience temperatures over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The Crew Dragon has been designed to keep the astronauts inside comfortable during the ride home to Earth. Once they are back in the atmosphere, the spacecraft will release 4 main parachutes to slow down the speed and energy of the vehicle before it splashes down in the Atlantic Ocean or Gulf of Mexico. These spacecraft are exciting sneak peeks at the future of space travel.
And NASA's Commercial Crew Program.
Want to know more about space travel? Check out this website for more information.
So, Dana, you are the deputy program manager for what we just watched. What does that mean? What does that mean to be the program manager for the Commercial Crew Program?
It's pretty exciting that I've had this opportunity. I, started off in commercial crew, working in the launch vehicle office. Then I moved to systems engineering. And a couple of years ago, I was given this opportunity to be able to lead the program. It's pretty awesome to also be able to work with both Boeing and SpaceX, as you saw in that video, and actually to be able to make what we dreamed about 10 years ago come to reality. And we've had a number of successful missions already, and it's just it's pretty awesome to be able to lead this large team of engineers and work with these contractors, Boeing and SpaceX, to be able to accomplish these missions.
So does the Commercial Crew Program launches and the group itself, is it only housed at Kennedy Space Center, or are there people from all over the agency that are involved with your work?
Oh, that's a great question. We were a pathfinder into working a program that spans across multiple centers too. I'm located at Kennedy Space Center, but the program manager and another deputy are also located at Johnson Space Center, and we travel back and forth as well when we're not in COVID and working virtually. But we have a lot of our team is at Johnson Space Center in Houston, and a lot of our team at Kennedy, as well as also at Marshall in Alabama. So it's really cool. We actually have been working as a virtual program for quite some time. And we are able to like do video meetings even before we had to work virtually as well. So our program is what we've done is we've selected a lot of the best engineers across the agency, and we're working with them.
So it's almost a blessing in disguise to have to work from home sometimes, even though we don't feel like it is. But that's great. We had a comment.
I do feel like it was a pretty seamless transition for us. We were, used to kind of working a little remotely and being able to pick up the phone or, doing the video telecon. So it was pretty natural for us to be able to transition to this.
We had a comment from Janani who said that you were definitely an inspiration to her. So I wanted to throw that out there. And then what most excites you about working at NASA?
It's the mission, I believe. It's kind of, I forget about it a lot of times when I'm doing my daily job. But when I go somewhere or talk to some people outside of work and you talk to them about what you do, and everybody is, the whole world is excited about what NASA does and what we're learning from space travel. So it's just, I think it's the mission of us being able to launch astronauts. I mean, not a lot of people can say they're a part of that kind of a program and a business of being able to launch astronauts into space. So there's a lot of cool things that we do at NASA.
And you've got a crewed launch coming up at the end of the month. And I think we have the mission poster that we can show everybody at home that's watching of the upcoming crew. So that's Crew 3. That's going to be replacing the crew that's up on the station now. And I hope everybody tunes in at the end of the month to see that launch. And I think I'm going to use this time real quick just to talk about the mission that we have for the students to get involved in your work. They can actually get involved and attend a launch virtually. So this is our call to action for everybody out there. We definitely want you to come and watch maybe the Crew 3 launch or the Lucy launch that's going to happen in a couple weeks to explore the asteroids out there by Jupiter. You can also try out an activity in the hashtag Launch America STEM Mission Toolkit, and we'll drop those links for you in the chat so you can sign up to attend the launch and try out an activity, and then share your work with us on hashtag NextGenSTEM. And don't forget to let Launch America know what you're doing. Let Dana know and see all the great work that you're doing at home at hashtag Launch America. And then next week, we've got the Glenn, Director of Center Operations, Robin Gordon, who's going to be joining us Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern next Wednesday. So that's what we've got going on in the next week or so. And Dana, do you have any last minute words for the students that are watching today to kind of boost their morale as they trudge along trying to finish the race just like you did?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for the shout out for Crew 3 that's coming up at the end of October. I welcome anyone to come watch it. It's super awesome to be able to see a rocket and know that it has astronauts in it and being able to launch into space. So thank you for that plug. We're very excited. This is our third operational mission, and being able to transport the 4 astronauts up to station, and then we'll bring back home the 4 astronauts that are on station. We'll bring them back home about a week later. So the Crew 2 mission will end shortly after we launch Crew 3. But some advice maybe I could give the students. My one teacher always told me is to be persistent. And I talked a little bit about that when I was given an opportunity to interview for different companies. But the one that piqued my interest was working at Kennedy Space Center. And although I didn't get a call back at first, I was pretty persistent and kept calling them and emailing and trying to get an opportunity to work in the space business. So I would just say, be persistent. Also, don't let anyone tell you can't do something. Sometimes I feel like that makes me want to do it even more when they tell you can't do something. So I would just say, work hard, study hard. You may not be the best and brightest in your college, in your high school, in your class, but just work hard, study hard, be persistent, and you can make any dream come to reality.
Perfect. Be proud of yourself too. I think that's part of it too. Be persistent and be proud. You got to be proud of yourself, I'm sure. So
Thank you.
Thank you for those wise words, and I hope all of our students today heard what you said. And if they have any questions, feel free to put it on social media, hashtag NextGenSTEM, and we will see you all next week. And thank you for joining us, Dana, and thank you, STEM fans. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.